Hey, everybody. So it looks like we have been so focused on all the upcoming Disney Plus series that are coming out and all this other great Star Wars content, we forgot about the books. Yes, it looks like there's going to be a lot of books coming out in 2022, and we're going to talk about them right now.
You're listening to Head to Head, a Star Wars podcast. Two fans, two generations, all things Star Wars begins now.
All right, hello, everybody. As you can see, I am solo, no pun intended. Unfortunately, Daryl actually had a little bit of a medical emergency thing going on, so he's okay. It's cool. It's just one of his relatives was having some issues, and so he had to stay with him. But I'm here with you, and I did not want to go another week without doing a show for you guys. I just didn't think that that would be the right thing to do because it's been a minute. So I was actually trying to think of what could I actually talk about today? What could we be, discussing? And I ran across this article probably like an hour ago that was talking about all these new Star Wars books that are coming out. And so what I would like to do is I'd actually like to go through those things with you guys, see what's coming up, and actually react in real time. I have not read this article ahead of time. I figure, I don't know how long this show is going to be because, like I said, it's kind of an impromptu thing. I did not want to go another week without spending a Friday evening with you guys. Our schedules have been kind of crazy, but hey, there's a lot of Star Wars to talk about. Don't forget, Monday, we are going to be talking about Visions Episode 2. We haven't forgotten about that. There's a lot to do. So let's get in a little bit to the Star Wars book. Now, I'm going to have to see, like I said, I put this together kind of impromptu. So let's see what we got here. All right. So this is the article that I was talking about. And it's talking about how we have all these Star Wars books that are coming out, right? So some essential Star Wars stories are coming to our galaxy. There's going to be 4 new books featuring never before told tales from across the Star Wars saga. So we got Shadows of the Sith, which is from author Adam Christopher. And to be honest, I don't actually recall anything by this guy. And I usually like to pride myself about being up on a lot of these Star Wars authors, but honestly, I don't remember. If you guys remember, drop it down in the comment section, or like I said, we're ready to take your comments live, so go ahead and chat in. But anyway, so this one's going to take place after Return of the Jedi and finds Luke Skywalker and Lando Calrissian on a mission to locate Exegol. So let's just stop there for a second, because I actually think that this is one of the cooler elements of what they're doing with Star Wars now, which is they're actually trying to tie together a lot of the continuity. I've talked in a lot of previous shows about the fact that what they're trying to do now is, instead of coming up with all these individual stories that are happening or whatever, what they're doing is they're trying to broaden the whole saga. They're trying to broaden the whole franchise, I guess, and they're trying to come up with a continuity that makes sense. So in other words, instead of compartmentalizing their novels and their comics, and then you have the films, and then you have the TV shows, now you're getting more of a broad sense of the entire universe as a whole. And they're starting to do a lot of crossover stuff, which this is one of the things that I've always thought has been super important for them to do. And that is, they have to start diversifying. They have to start actually having things cross over from the books into the shows, into the movies, and things like that. Otherwise, there really is no point. And I don't know about you guys, but I am a huge fan of the Star Wars novels. I always have been. Ever since the whole Heir to the Empire first came out in 1991, I was right there, and I was on board immediately. So let's go a little bit more into this. The second one is called Star Wars Brotherhood by Mike Chen, and it follows Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin Skywalker amidst the chaos of the Clone Wars, and Skywalker's rise to Jedi Knight. Now, again, I think that that's interesting because, once again, just like this whole Shadow of the Sith or whatever, they're trying to actually deepen, I think, the lore a little bit and not just release standard adventures or whatever. But I think, and I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure what they're doing is they're almost apologizing for the sequel trilogy. I think that in a lot of ways, the sequel trilogy did do a disservice to a lot of fans. I personally thought they were good. I mean, let's face it, they had problems. And Daryl and I have done many, many shows on the problems of the sequel trilogy and obviously the fact that they didn't plan it out. And there's definitely a lot of issues with the sequel trilogy. But at the end of the day, I think the story itself, if you just take it from a pure storyline perspective, even though, again, I know there's some loopholes in it, it's okay. It's good. I think the execution was bad in a lot of ways, but story-wise, I think it's okay. But again, they were sort of left with some plot holes and kind of a mess. So I'm glad to see that what they're trying to do is do what I would call almost like a soft reboot, right? They're trying to explain their way out of some things. They're trying to fill in some plot holes. And I think that this is good. And in the case of this Brotherhood series or book, I think that one of the things that's cool about that is they're exploring, once again, a little bit deeper Anakin and Obi-Wan's friendship. That's something that we haven't really honestly seen too much of. You see a little bit in the beginning, if you're just taking it from the prequel trilogy. In the beginning, you see a little bit of it. In Attack of the Clones, you get a little bit of hint of it. And then, of course, Revenge of the Sith, you're seeing kind of the tail end of it. But the problem that I have, and I think that this is a problem that a lot of people have, is that even though in the Clone Wars animated series, you do get a feel for it, right? You do get definitely more of a scope of their friendship. I still don't think it went deep enough because if you think about it, they're just sitting there having all these crazy adventures. And even though, again, you're getting glimpses of their friendship, it's not quite the same as what you would experience in, say, something like, well, let's just say what a book could give you. I think that that's really more what it comes down to. You have to try to approach this from the standpoint of giving us a little bit more depth. And I think that that's really, honestly, where things have fallen a little bit short. I think things have fallen short, and that's the reason why, for lack of a better term, you're getting certain issues with some of the things, some of the elements in the sequel trilogy. But it's really tough to put it in any kind of perspective because, again, they allowed so many different filmmakers, so many different people to sort of have a hand in building this thing out. And I don't know. To me, it's become somewhat of a convoluted mess. But again, you guys are more than free to share your thoughts in the comment section or whatever. And, let me know what you guys are thinking. I really am curious on what you guys are thinking, because after all, this is basically a Star Wars discussion show, so we pretty much like to have Star Wars discussions. All right. So let's continue this here. So now another book that we have is Star Wars Stories of Jedi and Sith, a new middle grade anthology. It features adventures from 10 acclaimed authors and young adult novel Star Wars Padawan, which is another book by Kirsten White. Again, I'm not necessarily familiar with this author. If any of you guys are familiar with her, let me know in the comments section. It depicts Obi-Wan in his early days as a student of Qui-Gon Jinn. And then you can check out the official synopsis and release dates for all below. So, Sorry if I was rambling a little bit there before. I was trying to deal with this little graphic situation. Because, again, this is a little impromptu, but hey. I like the idea of this Padawan novel, to be honest. I think that the Padawan novel is going to be something that is going to mirror, in a sense, the Master and Apprentice book. Because in that sense, we had a little bit of a depiction of the early days of Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon and how they were having some issues. And so I think that one of the things that's really exciting about that is that we get a little bit more. Because honestly, I really, really enjoyed that book. I have to admit, I really did. I thought that that book was absolutely fantastic. Now, I don't know if they're going to continue this as an ongoing series. That's going to be tough to say because, you know, they could do something where they actually feature Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon quite a bit. And I would not be surprised if you ended up seeing a lot of books like this. I think it would be cool. I don't know, again, if that's what they're actually going to do. But certainly, that's definitely an option that's out there. Let's see what else we got. Okay, so now we're going to start to get in. Again, you know, these aren't the final cover art or anything like that. But again, this is pretty much the books that we have so far. I think that ultimately, we're off to a good start. Hey, Ronaldo's with me. All right. Hey, what's up, Ronaldo? It's good to see you, man. As you can see, I'm kind of by myself, and, you know, I put together this whole graphic thing really quick, so this one isn't going to be too long of a show, because, again, I actually wasn't even going to do the show tonight. As you can see, I'm clearly not really prepared to do so. But, again, it's been too long, and I really don't like it when we're not on and giving you guys some Star Wars stuff and some good discussion. Again, Daryl had a little bit of a medical emergency he had to take care of, but, you know, it happens. But the question for you guys tonight is, what are you thinking as far as these Star Wars books that are coming out? You know, we have Shadow of the Sith, which, again, I think is going to be a really cool book because it was one of those things that the connection between Luke Skywalker and Exegol, we never really figured out. Because obviously we see a little bit of a glimpse of Luke in The Force Awakens, and then in The Last Jedi, he doesn't really address Palpatine or anything that much. And again, a lot of that has to do with the fact that Palpatine wasn't even supposed to be in Episode 9 originally. But when they put him in Episode 9, one of the things that I thought was really cool is that they had Luke start to mention a few things about Palpatine, even though I thought it was a little bit of a stretch of, yeah, Leia and I always knew that, you know, Luke was, or Rey was Palpatine's granddaughter. I thought that was a bit of a stretch. But again, it makes some sense. But the problem that I have with this stuff, it's almost the same as the careless way that they handled Luke, pretty much, right? Because you had Obi-Wan and Yoda were supposed to be watching over him. And it was just kind of like, there was a lot of coincidences that pretty much led to Luke being trained. They left a lot to chance is pretty much what I'm saying. And all of a sudden, you know, it's almost like they were just, it was dumb luck. And the Rey thing was the same thing. You know, if you look at the way that Rey was handled, and Luke is all of a sudden going, oh yeah, you know, Leia and I knew about her being Palpatine's granddaughter the whole time. And it's like, well, if that was the case, you'd think that they would have been a little bit more diligent about maybe wanting to train her and have her on his side. Because if you think about it, in The Last Jedi, Luke was refusing to train her. Now, of course, a lot of that could have been to see how she handles it, but I don't know. Um, Ronaldo says, I love the story portrayed in Shadows of the Sith. It will help to fill some of the holes in the sequels. I agree. I think that is going to be a key book, and that's pretty much what I was getting at on this long-winded explanation, pretty much, is the fact that I think that what they're trying to do with some of the books now is fill in some of the holes that the sequels left, particularly Episode 9. Because with Episode 9, they had to really move through a lot of things, and everybody knows one of my complaints has always been that during the entire saga, anytime you would mention the Jedi, everybody would be like, huh? And, you got Han going, well, I don't believe there's this Force and all this stuff. And everybody would, it's almost like the Jedi had to prove they existed. It's almost like everybody forgot about them within a period of a few decades, right? Keep in mind, there was like 10,000 of these people all over the galaxy for hundreds of years. They disappear for like 20 or 30 years, and suddenly everybody acts like they didn't exist. Now, you fast forward to Episode 9, and the whole term Sith is being thrown around like, oh, yeah, well, the Sith. Oh, that's a Sith language? Well, that's forbidden. Oh, the Sith are back? I mean, it's ridiculous, because the Sith were always trying to operate kind of in an underground sort of situation, right? And it's kind of like there's only two of them at any given time, but yet the entire galaxy seems to know who they are. And this is after like a 30-year absence. And even then, a lot of people didn't know that Vader and Palpatine were Sith Lords. Maybe they could have pieced it together, but I don't know, man. It seems kind of a stretch to me, to be honest. And then, of course, Ronaldo says, is Daryl okay? Yes, Daryl is fine. Like I said, he had a relative that had a little bit of a medical emergency, so he texted me earlier today, said, hey, listen, I can't do the show tonight. And again, not to keep, bringing this up or anything like that, but I was considering going yet another day without doing a show, because you guys all know, first of all, our show pretty much hinges on the discussion, right? Daryl and I going back and forth and discussing, and then, of course, we talk to all of you guys. So a lot of times I don't really like doing the shows on my own, although I have done a few of them. And sometimes when we get a lot of chats, it ends up being pretty lively and everything is cool. But I don't know. But at the same time, it's kind of like it would be another week. Like, we didn't do a show last Friday. We didn't do a show last Monday. I just didn't want to do another Friday without a show. Even though I'm usually the guy that says, you know what, I'd rather do no show than a bad show. And sometimes when I'm doing these things solo, it takes me a little while to get warmed up and get going. But, hey, my buddy Ronaldo's here, so I think it's going to be good. So Ronaldo says, of all the books, which one seems to be the most interesting to you? That's a good question. I mean, I'm going to have to say it's probably the Shadow of the Sith book. Only because if you look at some of the other books, and I apologize, I had all this stuff up so we can go through this stuff together, but it doesn't seem to be working. Brotherhood is kind of cool in the sense of the fact that, once again, it's dealing with the Obi-Wan Anakin friendship, which I do think was not as deeply explored. As I brought up a little bit earlier, you see the beginning of it in Attack of the Clones. You see the end of it in Revenge of the Sith. And during the Clone Wars series, even though you do see a lot of that friendship and some of the development, it's really more rooted in the adventure, and the friendship is a little bit secondary. So, I don't know. And then, of course, there's a story of the Jedi and Sith, where, the brave Jedi, the devious Sith, it's basically like kind of, it looks like it's going to be an anthology series. So that'll be kind of interesting, I think. But again, I think that a lot of people are, I don't want to say they're burned out, on the Jedi and Sith, but I don't necessarily think that they had to deal with it, although it is kind of like this reimagined thing of all new tales of everybody from Luke to Vader to people like Asajj Ventress. So I think that could be kind of cool. The book Padawan looks good, like I said, because much like Master and Apprentice, it is going to explore a little bit of that relationship between Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon. Now, what I would like to see from that book is maybe it pick up a little bit later on in that. Because I think Master and Apprentice did somewhat of a good job of basically, I guess, illustrating the relationship and some of the problems and a little bit of the speed bumps, if you will, that they had. Because remember, Qui-Gon, I don't know if you guys read the book or not, but Qui-Gon really wasn't all that keen on training Obi-Wan. Not because he didn't like him, but because he just didn't think it was a good fit. And I thought that was a really cool, interesting way of presenting this. Because a lot of times we just think, okay, these guys are paired up together. You have your Padawan, you have your Master. The Jedi are wise, and, of course there's not going to be any problems. They're going to be able to handle anything. But I think it's really cool that they actually deal with personality conflicts. That sometimes if you put a Padawan with a Jedi Master, the teaching style might not be really great. Or maybe their personalities clash a little bit, and you do get a little bit of a thing. You get some conflict there, which of course makes good storytelling. So I think that's going to be really cool. And again, one of the things that really fascinates me, I think, about this whole thing is the fact that they're by authors that I'm not really 100% familiar with, to be honest. Like I said at the beginning of the show, I pretty much pride myself on being up on a lot of my Star Wars books, and even some of the ones that I haven't read, even as far back as the Legends series, I'm still pretty aware of most of your big authors, right? But a lot of these people, I don't think I actually have heard of them too much. So let's see. Ronaldo also says, it seems like Stories of Jedi and Sith is an anthology, which sounds cool. I love anthologies of all kinds. And I agree. I think that one of the cool things about anthologies is the fact that you could tell a lot of really cool different stories. Like, you could pick an overall theme, and then you can tell stories around that theme, if that makes sense. It's almost like if you have a bunch of projectors converging and making one image. So each projector they're kind of, projecting a little small section of the image, and together they all form one image. I think that's one of the things that anthologies do quite effectively, actually, is the fact that they could take an overall theme, like you had the Jedi and the Sith, and you can talk about it. Like, one of my favorite anthology Star Wars books of all time is Tales from Jabba's Palace. That thing had so many cool different little stories, and it gave us some background. Now, of course, it's in Legends now. They have altered, at least as far as we know, they have altered the backstories a little bit of Boba Fett and even a little bit of IG-88. But the way that they were presented in that story was really cool. So I just got to say that I think that anthologies are really cool, and I would love to see more of them in the Star Wars universe. They have released a lot of them. I'm not saying that they haven't released enough, because they have. But now that you actually have this whole diversified franchise and you have all these different stories and everything, I think now you can really do some cool anthologies. But we'll have to see. Because again, I'm wondering what the overall plan is. I really am. I'm wondering what they're doing, what they're trying to do, what they're trying to accomplish, because it just seems like this whole announcement came out of nowhere. Maybe it was just me not paying attention, but they didn't really seem to have any books that were slated for release, and all of a sudden, because, I'm getting this from StarWars.com. This isn't just some, internet thing or some blog or something. I mean, this is actually coming from Star Wars themselves. So they're basically announcing their 2022 lineup, which I think is cool. Ronaldo says, Tales from Jabba's Palace is great. Yeah, I think it was probably the best one of all the anthologies. But again, I know a lot of different people have a lot of different takes on it. Trying to think of some of the other ones that were cool from back then. I think there was a Tales from Mos Eisley, if I'm not mistaken. I think that was one of them. I think they had a Bounty Hunter anthology series at one point. And then, of course, more currently, they've had Legends of Luke, or yeah, was it Legends of Luke Skywalker? It was something like that, which I thought was really cool. You know, that was a really, really cool idea. I haven't read it, so I don't know. Right now, I'm right in the middle of the second High Republic book, Children of the Light. Or no, I'm sorry. I'm on Into the Darkness still. That's right. But they've got some of that stuff that's coming out. Of course, the new issue of War of the Bounty Hunter, which is a comic series, that's coming out any day now. I believe it's the last issue. I think it was like a limited run. I think it's like a 5-issue run or something. So that's going to be cool. There's just going to be all kinds of really, really good books, really good comic series that are coming out. But again, I think that this dropped from nowhere. Ronaldo agrees. He says it did come out of nowhere. I recently heard about this in YouTube. Yeah, I mean, honestly, like I said, So here's how this whole thing came about. So Daryl texted me, said he couldn't do the show tonight. I'm like, all right, that's fine. You know, of course, I hope his relative's okay and all that stuff. And I was just thinking about what I was going to do tonight. And that's when I started thinking, I'm like, you know, I kind of, the whole reason why I do this show is because I really like to talk to you guys about Star Wars. Now, whether you're watching live, whether you watch the rebroadcast and then comment in, doesn't matter. I love talking to you guys about Star Wars. That's the whole reason why we do this show. And honestly, I've kind of missed it, right? I'm used to every Monday at 8, every Friday at 8, coming on and talking some Star Wars. It's kind of like a relaxing thing, something that I can do. And, of course, Star Wars is one of my favorite franchises of all time. So what a better way to spend a Friday night? And I realized, like, what else do I really want to do tonight? You know, why not just fire up the gear and everything and just kind of put it out there? But then I was starting to poke around and, you know, see what I could talk about, because what we were going to do is we were going to talk about some of the new details that have come out about the Andor series. That was going to be kind of our big thing. And, of course, Monday, we're going to be, every Monday until, well, I guess for 9 Mondays, we're going to be reviewing the Star Wars Visions series. So we got episode 2 coming up Monday. Hopefully, you know, everything's stable and we can be here for that. But I just started poking around and, you know, seeing what was out there. Like, well, okay, what could I talk about on my own? And I'm the one that usually reads most of the books. I mean, Daryl reads some of the books, but for the most part, he doesn't really read too many of them. I'm really more the one that's into all the books. So it really made more sense. If I was going to do something solo, I might as well do something where I could actually contribute, more to the conversation. I mean, if he and I were to talk about it, we could talk about a lot of things, but I'm the one that's really reading the books. So it just made more sense. So I'm just poking around on there, and I found out that they had this whole book release schedule going, and I was really shocked because I hadn't heard anything leading up to this. Yes, they've been releasing the High Republic books pretty steadily, but that's about all the things that, that they've actually said. So Ronaldo says, haven't read Into the Dark yet. Is it good? I'm guessing it is because it's Claudia Gray. Yes, it's very good, but here's the thing. It's actually one of her weakest books. Don't get me wrong. I still recommend the book, it's still an enjoyable read, and I'm getting through it. I mean, it's not like Aftermath. The whole trilogy itself, I thought was cool, but that first book, honestly, was really hard to get into. And Chuck Wendig is normally a good writer. I mean, he's one of those guys that has been writing Star Wars books for a while. But I remember, and by the way, it was a very interesting thing because that was really the first canonical look that we've had about the, the whole, I guess, like post Return of the Jedi thing. That was like really one of the first looks that we had. So from that standpoint, I really didn't understand why it was taking me so long to get through this book, but it was a really hard read. Now, once you get into Life Debt and then Empire's End, which were the second and third books respectively in that trilogy, well, then it was cool. And then when you really go back, and you start thinking about the whole thing, the whole like trilogy as a whole, well, then Aftermath is pretty cool. But the problem is that getting through it, though, I know it's kind of tough. Now, it's not a situation like that, but it's not, I guess what I'm trying to say is it's not really a weak book. It's a weak Claudia Gray book. It's just not one of her best. But I still recommend it. I'm getting through it. It's not, like I'm sitting there going, oh man, I got to get through this book. No, it's cool. It's cool. Ronaldo says, of course, are you into audiobooks? I'm into the concept of audiobooks. That's the problem. The problem is I guess I just have to get one. To be honest, it's really strange because I'm super into podcasts. And the problem that I have with audiobooks is that when I read, I kind of like to take in the information. I mean, I'm not really a slow reader or anything like that, but when I'm reading and it's just me and the words on the page, I actually can, I think, stretch my imagination, whereas when you're dealing with an audiobook, what's happening is now you have the way the person is reading it, and again, it's almost like, at this point, it's like a movie. Now, from that standpoint, it's kind of cool because what audiobooks have become, particularly Star Wars ones, because they have the sound effects, they have music, they have all this stuff. A Star Wars audiobook, from what I understand, is really a lot closer to a radio drama than it is an audiobook, where you just simply have an author reading the book. Now, one element that I really love about audiobooks is when you're dealing with an autobiography of somebody, then it's kind of cool because if I'm reading a story about a particular artist, whether they're an actor or a musician or whatever, to actually hear them telling their story, that makes sense. Now it's not like the narrator is getting in the way of the story, because in this case, it is the narrator's story. But I don't know, I've always said that I was going to try to do a Star Wars audiobook, but I haven't gotten to it yet. I'll be honest, because every single time I go to do it, I just end up buying the regular book. And keep in mind, I bought a ton of Star Wars books, right? I got a lot of Star Wars books. Actually, I just have a lot of books, period, I got to get through. So if we're going to divide it into categories, I've got Star Wars books, and then I have like music type books. I just bought the new Eddie Van Halen. I forgot who. It wasn't Mick Wall, I don't think. It was Brad Tolinsky, I think. He was the editor of Guitar World. He took like all these audio conversations that he's had with Eddie Van Halen over the years and essentially turned them into a book, and it more or less tells a story, kind of in his words. So that sounded interesting. There's a couple of autobiographies by some musicians that I had also gotten that I got to get through still too. And then there's also kind of like, not self-help, but, kind of like business-related books. like kind of like the 4-day work week and profit first and, stuff like that. So I do have some books that I have to get through. Another author I really like, it's another non-Star Wars related, but is Steve Alton. Now, he's the guy that wrote The Meg. Now, when they came out with the Meg movie, it's really not like the book at all. And that's what makes everybody that is a super Steve Alton fan upset about. Unfortunately, Star Wars doesn't seem to suffer from that problem too much because being that it's, in a lot of cases, it's a movie franchise that spins off books. Usually, it's almost like you get more detail in the book, so it's cooler. Like, for instance, every single book that has been based on one of the movies, so the Return of the Jedi book, or the Force Awakens book, or, Empire Strikes Back, particularly Revenge of the Sith, though. That book is cool because it actually gives you a bunch of, like, the whole scene when Obi-Wan and Anakin are trying to save Palpatine. I mean, that scene is so much richer and more detailed and everything than what they showed in the movie. In fact, I made the mistake of actually reading the book before seeing the movie. So here I am in the movie theater, lights go down, and I know that this is basically kind of the opening scene. So I'm excited to actually see on the screen everything that I've read in the book. And there's elements of it, but the problem is that, it's like cut way down. And in my head, I'm thinking, well, wait, where's this scene? Where's that scene? And there's a lot of really cool, if you guys haven't read that book, that is really cool. One of the things that I was thinking of doing for this channel, because I'm going to be wrapping it up here soon, but let me know in the comments section what you guys think of this, because I think it would actually be cool to do sort of like almost like a book discussion show, because there's so many different Star Wars books out there, and I mean, I've basically been reading them, and so every once in a while, it might be cool to get together and just discuss either one particular book or just periodically have a whole discussion about all the books. And that could be anything from the comics that are out to the novels to, really any of the Star Wars literature that's out there. I think that might be kind of a cool thing. You guys might enjoy that. I don't know. Let me know in the comments section. Ronaldo says, in my opinion, the Revenge of the Sith book is better than the movie. Absolutely. 100%. There's so many things in that book that were way better than the movie. The Attack of the Clones book was better than the movie. The whole scene where they were on Tatooine, and they met Klieg Lars for the first time and all that. There's like so much more to that than what they showed in the movie. And it's sad. I mean, that's the problem. You get this whole thing to where you get all these details in these books. That's the reason why, honestly, once the sequel trilogy came out, I did not read the books first. I don't think really they gave you the option, because for the sequel trilogy, I think the books came out the day the movie came out. I don't remember any of the books coming out before the movie, because they had, even though I keep saying, oh yeah, I don't want to see it. I would have definitely read the book before I saw the movie. Now, I might not have been able to finish it by the time the movie came out or whatever, but I definitely would have read it. I would have at least started it. So I think what they started to do with the sequel trilogies, they actually released the books on the same day. They did that with the movie soundtracks too, because they had that whole thing to where, and this was actually the funniest thing in the world to me, when the Phantom Menace soundtrack came out, and they basically had a track on there called like Qui-Gon's End or something like that. Well, right there, that's a spoiler, right? Because the thing came out like a week or something before the movie did. So already you know that Qui-Gon's going to die. So I thought that was kind of funny. Regarding the whole doing a show on the books and everything like that, Ronaldo says, sounds like a great idea. Well, yeah, I might do it. I mean, after all, Ronaldo, you are the one that inspired the whole Visions review. Now, as you may have noticed from the episode 1, Daryl's not really too terribly into Visions, so this is actually going to be kind of fun. And I guarantee you just because I've already watched episode 2, because again, we were going to do it this past Monday. So we're going to do it this Monday. I'm not thinking that his opinion's going to change too much on Visions. I'm looking forward, actually, to seeing more of the series. In fact, I was so tempted to just binge watch the rest of it, but I'm trying to do this right. You know, I mean, we said, look, we're gonna watch an episode, kind of react to it, and review it on the next show. And so I want to keep that purity. I want to keep it to where Daryl and I are watching the exact same episodes at the same time and then instantly reacting. I don't want to have any of the future episodes kind of refer back on me and everything like that. So we're trying to do that right. But again, with the books, though, it's a little bit different because there's just so many. And like I said, I bought a ton of them, right? I got the whole Queen's Peril, Queen's End, all the stuff that's about Amidala. They had that, I don't know, trilogy of books or whatever. I bought those. So I still got those to read. And I think I actually bought another one. I just don't remember which one it was, but I got a bunch of them. Ronaldo says, do you like episode 2 of Visions? Ronaldo, you know better than that. We're reviewing it on Monday at 8, man. You're going to have to basically watch and find out. It was interesting. I'll say that. But I think that it's cool what they're trying to do with the whole anime thing. It's just, I'm going to be curious on the future episodes to see if it's really going to be compartmentalized. So in other words, each studio obviously is doing their own thing. Is it just going to be every studio is interpreting things and there's not going to be any cohesion to it? Or is there, if you take the series overall, is there cohesion? Now, I know, Ronaldo, you probably know this because by now you've probably seen them all. I remember the last time that we were talking about when we did the Visions 1 review, you said, I think that we were going to like episodes like 5 and 7 or something, but you hadn't had a chance to see 8 or 9, I think, was where we left off. But hey, if you have seen it, let me know in the chat. And, you know, or you can wait till Monday and when we're talking about Visions then. I had actually heard rumors that they might be doing books based on at least episode 1 of Visions. If they do that, it's going to be really interesting because up until now, they have said that the books are all canon and everything else. Well, first of all, they lied and said that everything was going to be canon, but then they sort of walked it back. Well, certain things are going to be and certain things aren't going to be. Now, my thing is, like, look, if you guys are going to do that, at least specify and say, okay, here's a new thing that's coming out. And yes, it's going to be recognized as Star Wars canon. Now, the other thing that they could do, if they want to, which I think would make a little bit more sense, is if you're going to make a situation to where some things are canon and some things aren't, then just say something like, okay, unless we specify it's not canon, then it is. So that way they don't have to sit there and make a comment on every single piece of content that comes out. It's more like if it's coming out, just assume it's all canon unless we say otherwise. Visions, they said, was not. Or at least I think they said some of the episodes were not going to be. Which is really interesting. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do. If they do turn episode 1 in particular into a series of novels or maybe even a one-off, it's going to be interesting to see what it does. Okay, Ronaldo says, yeah, I saw it all in one day. That doesn't surprise me because, look, this is a very bingeable series. You know, it's not really that tough. I mean, they're only like 15 to 20 minutes long or something. He also says all the episodes end in a way that they can have a continuation. Yeah, sequelitis. That's the way it goes. You know, that's the other thing that bothers me sometimes too, is that it seems like they can't just do a show to where it just, you have the thing and it ends. They can't just do a one and done anymore. Everything has to have a continuation or a sequel. Now, I'm going to contradict myself a little bit here because, on one hand, I like that idea. Because if I'm invested in the characters and I like the characters, I want to see where these guys are going. I want to see the continuation. I see that a lot. I'm trying to remember what... There was a series or something that I saw recently where I was so into the characters that I just instantly said, I really want to see a sequel to this. It's almost like as soon as the credits are coming up, you wish the movie wouldn't end because you just want them to keep going. Because you just want to, you love these characters so much and you feel like you're kind of a part of them that you just don't want it to end. So from that standpoint, I like the idea that people do set certain stories or shows or a movie or whatever it is for a sequel, because it's not like you have to do it, but the option's there. What I don't like, though, is if they make a sequel necessary. That's the problem that I have, is when the sequel is actually necessary. Like you're almost ending on a cliffhanger type of a thing. Then I'm not really so nuts about it. So just to recap really quick here, we got Shadow of the Sith. And again, this one's going to pretty much pick up a couple of decades on from the Battle of Endor, you know. And Luke Skywalker's basically haunted by these visions of the dark side. And, you know, Lando's coming to him with reports of a new Sith menace. And Lando's daughter is, like, snatched from his arms. I mean, there's actually a lot of really cool things as I'm reading this article for, again, even though I kind of read it a little bit earlier, I got off on a little bit of a tangent. So I didn't really read every little thing on this, but, you know, he leads to a dead end, and then Ochi, a Bastoon, who he basically saw a Sith assassin tasked with kidnapping a young girl. So it's basically, I think what they're doing with this book is they're setting up a little bit of a blurb that we got in Rise of Skywalker, where Lando basically said that he and Luke were searching for Sith artifacts. I don't know if you guys remember that or not, but that was like something that Lando almost said in passing. And I remember when I was watching it in the theater, I started thinking, like, well, now that's a movie I wouldn't mind seeing. Or maybe, you know, they cover it in a book. So it looks like they're going to cover that in this book. Then we got Star Wars Brotherhood, which is, oh, by the way, Adam Christopher is the one that wrote Shadow of the Sith. Now, again, Ronaldo, you can certainly, you know, chat on this right now if you want, but I'm not really sure what other books Adam Christopher has written in the Star Wars universe. Or maybe he's a newcomer, I don't know. But I'm going to be really interested. By the way, this book, Shadow of the Sith, is coming out on June 28th of 2022. So we have a little bit of time. Now, Star Wars Brotherhood is written by Mike Chen. Now, Mike Chen I have heard of. I'm not entirely sure I've read anything by him. I would have to double check that. This book is coming out on May 10th. 2022, and this is the one that's really going to be exploring Anakin and Obi-Wan's friendship. So after an explosion devastates Cato Nemoida, the jewel of the Trade Federation, the Republic is blamed and the fragile neutrality of the planet is threatened. The Jedi dispatch Obi-Wan Kenobi, on and on it goes. So Obi-Wan, you know, is going to help a Nemoidan guard. Finds himself working against the Separatists. Oh, and Asajj Ventress, it looks like, is going to be making an appearance in this, which is cool, too, because, again, everybody who's watched this show for more than a couple of weeks knows that Asajj Ventress is definitely one of my favorite characters. I really hope that she somehow winds up in a series. Now, again, they killed her off in Dark Disciple. So they're either going to do one of two things. Either they're going to reverse that somehow, or they're just going to make things that take place before that happen. But now, Anakin Skywalker rises to the rank of Jedi Knight. And despite the mandate that Obi-Wan travel alone, Anakin basically, of course, crashes the party as he usually does. So this one looks like it might actually be pretty cool. Like I said, I always like things that explore the relationship between Anakin and Obi-Wan because, as I said a million times tonight, I really don't think that they've gone quite deep enough, because even though, I guess they've gone deep enough that I feel satisfied now when I watch episode 4 and I watch 5 and I watch 6. But particularly 4, because that's where Anakin and Obi-Wan, of course, face off again as Darth Vader and Obi-Wan. And you can feel, enough of the backstory that you could feel a little bit of anguish there. So, we'll just have to see. The Stories of the Jedi and Sith, that's got multiple writers, and that's coming out June 7th. So as you guys can see, most of the stuff is coming out pretty much in that May and June timeframe. Which, I'll be honest, it kind of surprises me, because you would think that they would want to stagger these releases. Now, again, these are 4 books that are coming out. This isn't the entire slate for 2022. I mean, I apologize. Maybe our title might have been slightly clickbaitish that way. But, again, I came up with this, in my defense, I came up with this really fast, and I just put, like, okay, here's a lot of these books that are coming out in 2022. But there's a lot of writers in this anthology. Roseanne Brown, Sarwat Chadha, Delilah Dawson, who I'm mildly familiar with, Tessa Gratton, Michael Kagi, Sam Maggs, Michael Morrissey, Alex Segura, Vera Strange, Karen Strong. And it has illustrations, which is interesting. So it's not just like a normal anthology book. I mean, they actually have some illustrations. Let's see. Ronaldo is giving me a little information on Adam Christopher. He says Adam Christopher worked in From a Certain Point of View book, which is another anthology book that I think is really cool. I haven't read it, but from everything I've read about it, that is probably going to make my reading list. And he was going to work in the Mandalorian original novel, and that's right. They were actually going to do an original novel based on the Mandalorian. I had forgotten about that. So we have Padawan by Kirsten White. Again, I'm not 100% familiar. Now, this one comes out a little bit later in July. This one is July 26th of 2022. And this is the one where Obi-Wan's struggling with his place in the Force as a young Padawan in this coming-of-age adventure. Now, I'm not entirely sure that I really need to see more of the teenage Obi-Wan. But again, if it's done right, it could be kind of fascinating. But it's looking like, just from reading this synopsis, that this is going to be more around the time frame of Master and Apprentice. That we're pretty much dealing with that very beginning of Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan's relationship. Because it says Obi-Wan wants to be a good Padawan, but that's more and more impossible with his new master, Qui-Gon. All of Obi-Wan's friends are off training to be real Jedi, getting the mission experience, and he's on Coruscant practicing his forms and sitting in silent contemplation. They have a little bit of a mirror story of this kind of relationship in the High Republic book, Into the Dark. Because I can't remember These names. I don't know why I have such a hard time sometimes. But there is a Padawan who it's a little bit different, though, because the master is trying to get him to go out and do more mission stuff, but he's really more into the academic stuff. And so that's where he stays. So it's kind of the same, but kind of different. So then, ever since Qui-Gon's former master, Dooku, left the Order, it feels like Qui-Gon has been too busy trying to connect with the Force or arguing with the Jedi Council to properly train his Padawan. So it's kind of in that same time period as Master and Apprentice, but it looks like it's going to show us a slightly different side of the same relationship. So Obi-Wan finally convinces Qui-Gon to take him on a mission. And let's see what else. So they arrive to a mysterious lush planet, a group of teenagers with no adult supervision, and all seem to have some kind of connection to the Force, but free from the constraints of the Order. That's probably a key point. Obi-Wan joins them in a daring adventure, but the Padawan side of him keeps questioning the teen's strange relationship to the Force and to the planet around them and what it all might mean to his future. So, again, this sounds like it's going to be an intriguing book. And I have to say that I think that when you really look at all these books, one of the things that I could definitely say is that they all sound like they're really good. They're going to tell some very key stories that are going to help enrich these characters and give us a lot more depth, which that's my favorite type of book. Yes, it has to have a good story. Not everything has to be some kind of a big reveal or big thing. But I always like it, though, when they do tell stories that enrich the saga as a whole. So in other words, they're not just good stories within themselves, but they also help inform the entire world around them. Another book that I forgot is I got the second Thrawn Ascendancy book. So, and the third one's going to be coming out next month. So I got to get going. So yeah, guys, it looks like I got a lot of books to read here. I think I'm going to have to wrap up the show tonight. Ronaldo, thanks for hanging in and chatting with me as always. We look forward to Daryl being back with us. The show will be more of its real format. On Monday, we're going to review Visions Episode 2, so be sure to check us out at 8 o'clock Eastern Time for that. And with that, guys, look for maybe some more book-related discussion shows. I think I kind of like it. I'm not decided yet whether or not I want to do it live yet or not. I might, though. What I might do is maybe make it a YouTube exclusive or maybe an exclusive for our Facebook group. You're definitely going to want to join our Facebook group if you haven't. Speaking of that, of course, be sure to hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. It really helps the channel. We would love to grow the channel. We want more people to join our discussion when we're live. But look, if you can't watch it live or you just don't want to chat in or whatever, I understand. Look, I watch a ton of shows. I don't chat either. But be sure to comment in because we'd really like to know what you guys are thinking about all these things that we're covering. So with that, I am Eric Vansel. May the Force be with you always.
Head to Head, a Star Wars podcast. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at HeadToHeadSW. Submit your questions for our next show. Visit our official website at headtoheadswpodcast.com. Until next time, may the Force be with you always.